Hi, I'm Brian McCall, the editor-in-chief of Catholic Family News, speaking to you from the 2019 Catholic Family News Conference here in Chicago. The theme of our conference this year has been the new Mass, 50 Years of Problems. In between conferences, we've had the opportunity to sit down and speak with several of the speakers who have presented at the conference this weekend, and it's my pleasure now to have a conversation with my friend and colleague at Catholic Family News, Matt Gaspers, who's managing editor of Catholic Family News. Matt will, in his conference, talk about the effect of his return to the traditional Latin Mass upon his family. But I thought for the interview today, we'd maybe just talk about first how you went to the traditional Mass. What brought you to it? How did you first find it?
Well, it's been quite a journey. As I'll explain in my conference talk, I went from playing in a heavy metal band to seriously discerning a vocation to the priesthood in a matter of maybe two and a half years. Wow. So a very radical transformation in a short period of time.
Well, Chris Farrar could have been your drummer in your band.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So I think what initially led me to, I didn't even really know that the traditional Latin Mass existed. I didn't grow up with it. Mm-hmm. But as I started getting really into studying the faith, especially like the church fathers, the doctors of the church, the way that they described the Mass and the importance and the sacrifice of the Mass didn't line up with what I was experiencing on Sundays. Mm. So that kind of set me on a path of where is the liturgy that these saints are writing about? Because it's not what I'm going to on Sunday. So I actually ended up discovering, first of all, the Byzantine Divine Liturgy, which was my first experience of a traditional, solemn, sacred liturgy. And after that, shortly after that, I finally realized that in the Roman Church, we still had a traditional liturgy. It just wasn't as widely available. So I sought it out.
So were there any people in your life that were helpful in leading on this path, or more reading and research?
I'd say more than anyone else, it had to be John Venari, God rest his soul. Catholic Family News, being exposed to that, a friend of mine and his dad are the ones who introduced me to Catholic Family News. Mm-hmm. This was in I think 2003, 2004, somewhere around there. And it was a huge epiphany for me, realizing that tradition is still here and that there's something very seriously wrong in the church. And as you know from your experience with John, he had such a gift of teaching the faith. He could explain very complicated things in very simple, easy to understand language. So Catholic Family News, as well as learning about the message of Fatima from John and the Fatima Center, had a profound impact upon me.
So it's important to remember the effect we can have on people just by perhaps giving them a copy of the newspaper, or signing up a friend for a subscription. Never know how that will speak to them and where.
Absolutely. And as I'm going to emphasize in my talk, if God can reach me and get me interested in the traditional Mass when I was listening to Metallica and Motley Crue and dressing and trying to sound like them, he can. There's hope for everybody, in other words. That tradition is for everyone. It's not for a small little clique or something. It is meant for everyone. And
that's really important. And 'cause I think one of the things to emphasize in the conference is we don't want to just have our little Mass and wherever it is, and we've got our Mass, we're safe. We got what we need. It is for everyone. It's the Mass for all peoples,
right.
And we want to get the information out.
Something I remember John would emphasize specifically in regard to World Youth Day, and that's a topic I'm planning to address because I was actually there as a participant in Toronto when he was there doing his investigative work, unbeknownst to me at the time.
Yeah.
But
so he was investigating you.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe I'm in his footage. I don't know. I had hair about halfway down my back then. Anyway, he would talk about how, throughout, this is the first, since Vatican II, it's the first time in the history of the church that we've had specific masses for specific age groups, as if young people are incapable of handling just the Mass. Like we have the children's Mass, we have the life teen Mass, we have the college Mass. There's just supposed to be the Mass. And children learn, it draws them up instead of trying to dumb things down for them.
No, that's excellent. I think Dr. Childs in his talk touched on that. And when you try to bring something down to the level of a child, let me act like you end up looking stupid.
Right, exactly.
Yes, so good.
And I'm finding, as a father myself now, my daughter is 8 years old, and then we have a son who's 3, and I think as any parent quickly learns, your kids will rise to the level that you call them to, within reason, of course. We don't want to be overly demanding, but we don't need to be cutesy about the faith with them. Like they can handle more than we realize a lot of times. For example, we have about a 45-minute drive to the closest traditional mass from our home, which is not much compared to some people. Yeah. Some people drive hours and hours. But it's actually been a blessing because my wife and I have taken the opportunity to do a catechism lesson with our daughter in the car. We also discuss the readings for Mass, and a lot of times we even read from my favorite spiritual book, The Divine Intimacy.
That's an excellent book.
Yes. And my daughter, she's only 8 years old, but I mean, a lot of that stuff, she can really handle it, and she rises to the occasion. So,
well, if you have high standards and expect much, often children will respond. If you have low standards, they're certainly just going to go to the low standards. So,
yes.
Excellent. Well, I'm really looking forward to hear more of your story tomorrow.
Yes.
Hear bits of the outlines of it, but to really hear more of the details will be fascinating because, as we can all say, right? But for the grace of God, go I.
That's right.
And if God can reach me, His grace is sufficient for anyone. So, Matt, along with all our other speakers, conferences will be available through the Catholic Family News website, catholicfamilynews.org. And really check back frequently, not just to see the conference postings, but news and blog stories that we will continue to post there. So this is Brian McCall from Chicago at the Catholic Family News Conference.
I forget